Good morning, Service Lines community. How y'all doing today? What's up, brother Doug?
You know what my daughter does? She leaves the soda cap half undone because she likes flatter soda. Do you have anyone in your life that has ever done that to you, Zach?
No, you got to have all the bubbles, man.
You gotta have all
All
the
the
bubbles, right?
bubbles.
So I woke up this morning feeling like flat soda. So for all you friends out there, pray for me that I get my what'd you call it? The bubbles back. I need the bubbles this week. That's what I need.
My bubbles.
Yeah.
My bubbles.
my bubbles. Yeah, woke up a little flat, but it's all good. I saw your face in the pre-roll, and I'm starting to get there. So thanks, Zach, for being my friend.
That song gets me jazzed up every time those cymbals crashing at the end. I think I say it every week, but it's like I can go from 0 to 100 just in that little pre-roll. So
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Good morning,
your
EJ.
weekend?
Good morning, Adam. Good to see you guys. I had a pretty good weekend. Saturday I was out working. I went and cleaned a friend's gutters. I was up there just inspecting the roof, and it's a childhood friend. And I'm like, man, these gutters are so bad. Give me the hose. I'm gonna spray it out. Like it's 2 stories up on a part of the roof is like a 12 pitch, so it's like vertical.
But you're a roofing pro now, so you shouldn't have any weak and wobbling knees or anything up there.
No weak and wobbling knees. It's just, 12 pitch is hard to do. So I went on the spot that was a 7 pitch, and I'm like spraying the hose way down the slide. So, and then yesterday I went for a 20-mile bike ride.
What? Why? Oh, that's right. You like to do stuff like that.
I do, and actually I have someone coming along with me, my tile setter, Carl. He's been like, dude, I want to ride a bike. So he's been coming along. We go out
for the 20 miles.
Yeah, dude. He went out. He's brand new to biking. He's like, let's go. Come on, let's adventure.
He's gotta be under 35, man. That's pretty impressive. What?
He's older than me.
Oh my gosh. I was taking blinds off my office's windows for the room to be painted. His shoulder still does. I can barely move it, man. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah, he was a couple of weeks ago. He's like, dude, I got this old bike, and I really want to ride. I know you ride a lot. Let's, like, you want to, like, yeah, sure, let's go. He actually called me over for his sister's roof, right? And so we started talking, and it's like, all right, cool, let's go ride. So now we do it on a pretty regular. So
nice.
Yeah, man. It's good to have the accountability.
I was gonna say, yeah. It's way cooler that way. And he's really amped, and you're slightly amped, and so it keeps you going, right?
He dials me back out there.
Oh, really?
Because like when I'm on the I zone in, and it's just like, let's go.
Yeah.
And so because he's building, he's a little slower in the process, and
sure.
He actually forces me to be back where I should be right now because I'm not in the shape that I want to be.
Yeah.
And so it kind of helps hold me back, which is good. We all need those friends, right?
That's great. I did 0 exercise this weekend. 0. I feel really good about it.
I got to sign you up for another 5K.
That's crazy.
I mean, Rob needs to sign you up for another 5K. Speaking of which, EJ's out there running, man. I'm super proud of him. So
is he?
He is.
From the cops. Justified, baby. Justified.
No.
Good job, EJ. Good job, buddy.
Yeah. So today we are talking about, did you write it down? But did you write it down? Right? And we've talked about that with goals and anything else. I shared that I was getting out there. I'm not in the shape I want to be. I got it written down. I signed up for accountability. I'm working with a trainer now. We're talking about this from the perspective of an employer, a trainer, a manager. Did you write it down for your employees? And what is the importance of writing down the system, the process, the method, whatever you're trying to get them to do? Did you write it down? So important. So important.
Yeah. It's one of those things you hear, business coaches and things, and you're just like, yeah. It's so simple.
Yeah, I'll get to it.
It can't really have the impact that it has. But oh my gosh,
We're gonna share. We'll share from experience.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how it works. And so many fronts, right? Thinking of EJ and our mastermind group, you write things down and you're meeting once a week, and guess what? It's written in history to be held accountable for.
And not just for you, but for if you have any employees, if you're wanting to have future employees, if you don't have it written down, it becomes a big problem. And I can share from that perspective as well. So pray us up and let's get into this discussion.
Good morning, Lord. God's grace that will pardon and cleanse within. Lord, we just pray that song, Grace, Grace, will shower over us this week, today, as we head out into the world and continue to be lights for the world. Lights that don't judge, lights that are not there to correct, lights that are not there to condemn, but lights that are to reflect your love and what you've done for each and every one of us, Lord, on the cross. And so I just pray, God, that the song of God's grace will shower over us today and give us patience and peace with a vision and an ear to listen for moments to just come alongside and love someone. Just love them. That's it, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So let's start with the familiar conversation. I can't find any employees that can do the job. They're terrible. I can't find anyone. They never do it the way they're supposed to do it. But did you write it down? Did you write down what you want them to do? Do you have a process? I know you do. All you guys that went from technician to owner or technician to manager or technician to lead tech, you got a process. There is steps that you followed, and chances are you have forgotten some of the steps along the way, but you do them because it's natural. It's mechanical now, right? Like you're just in tune to it, and you go to train someone and you miss those steps and they don't do them. And you're like, they're not doing what I want them to do. Did you write it down?
Yeah. Yep. My old general manager said to me, and he was a big cliche guy, big book reader. You go, there's no such thing as common sense, Doug. Just said it like that, and I was like, what the heck does he mean by that? And as a service manager, I'm dealing with things, and I'm coming back to him going, can you believe that the technician decided to do this? It's like, it's obvious. It's common sense. You do this. And he's like, there's no such thing as common sense. He kind of let me ponder that thing I wasn't willing to really dig in and let it, take hold of me. I was just thinking he was annoying me like a fly with there's no such thing as common sense. And then one day it hit me. There is no such thing as common sense. You show them the way. You tell them how to do it, and you write it down. And then now everyone knows where they stand. So you're absolutely right, Zach. There is, that's a pretty powerful thing to do, I think.
And from my own experience, I was bringing on guys and I was training guys and I had forgotten steps along the way. They were mechanical. I just did them because I knew how to do them because I'd done them so many times.
Yeah.
And then when I would go to train, well, why'd you do that? Or I can't figure this out. How did you figure it out? And too late, it dawned on me. I didn't write it down. I didn't have a process in place for going through a service call, for dealing with a tough customer, for, you name it. Like there's just a string of things. If you have it written down, you can train it. The other side of that we were talking was accountability. You can hold people accountable to what they're doing or not doing if you have it written down, if you have an identified process along the way.
The whole time we talk about this, there's two parties involved here. There's us and them, or the, employer and the customer, the employee, or the employee and the customer. Same things. If things aren't written down, it can be frustrating on both sides. Can you imagine that? An innocent frustration from both sides, that you forgot to tell them step 5 and they messed up and there was a consequence, or even maybe their pride, they want to do well, but you forgot to tell them number 5. Do we expect them to be, oh, it's okay, it's all right? Well, we might have made them look a little foolish, or they might feel frustrated, and it's all our fault, because we forgot to let them know about step number 5. It's not it, but it's Louis, and I think we've talked about this before. It's pretty daunting to get everything written down, but we should touch on that towards the end, I think, because it isn't as daunting as you think, But accountability is great, right? Pointing out that someone forgot a step or made a mistake, and they say, well, I didn't know how to do that. And you tell them it's page 10 in the document that I've given you, or in the handbook that I've given you. Recently, we've printed it out for the vans. So in my office, I make a joke that trees are just screaming in the wind as we print useless pieces of paper or emails, or, it seems, I wish we would go completely paperless. But in a leadership meeting, the service manager and the office manager felt strongly that the technicians would benefit from a hard copy binder of our processes and procedures and steps. And I wasn't going to get in the way of that. I mean, trees were howling so loudly because it's 18 manuals, and it's like, over 50 pages. And we went to Staples for it. It cost us a lot of money. But now Brian has this tool to say, you didn't do that properly, on the phone with them. And this is the way you write it, is this way. And you can go to, tab, whatever, page 6. And there's your example right there to model next time.
Mike is crying in the background somewhere. He's very, have it digital, have it easy to change, have it easy to access at all times. So Mike is crying somewhere in the background out in the,
and I brought that up. I said, guys, now you realize your responsibility is when you change a process or we add something, you now have to print a page and put it there. But the real trick is do I have my management staff pointing to the document? And so if I need to spend a couple $1,000 on manuals so that he will remember to say, hey, Joe, it's here, look there, then I'm willing to go through that exercise for sure.
The other side of that is onboarding employees really quickly, right? It makes the process so much easier. So I think of my experience coming into the roofing, and these guys have forgotten more in a short span of time than I've had the chance to learn. And so it's like, hey, well, why didn't you put that on there? I didn't know it was a thing. It wasn't in the template. It wasn't in the paperwork. It wasn't anywhere to be found. It's not something intuitive to me. Like I understand most of the process just because I've been in construction for a long time. But if you want a process done a certain way, you have to have somewhere to reference it. So especially as you're trying to bring new people on, how many people lose people early on as they're training them? Like, it just isn't the job for me. And they peace out.
Right.
If you did an exit interview, you would probably find out it's because you don't have a written process. You don't have a way to onboard them quickly, and they get frustrated through the process. No, I'm ADHD, so I'm not going anywhere, and I'm helping them write the process. And I'm writing stuff down in my own journal, like, hey, I've experienced this, and I've done this, and that one didn't work so well, but this did work well. So that kind of goes into your point earlier. It's really not that hard to write it down. It's as simple as putting it in a journal and then working with someone to get it put into a process that can be followed by everyone.
It's not your gift or talent, or you don't have the time, pay somebody, give it to someone. When I took over as general manager, that means I instantly had to be responsible for everything in the business. And that seemed pretty daunting, but all I did was take those in charge and tell them to make a list of everything that they do, And when they did, then I said, create a process that you use for it. And, everyone, all hands on deck. Our first manual was created, in collaboration with everybody taking care of their own part. And then when we would cross train, I would give that to someone else. And I would say, okay, so do this task through these directions. And if you see any issues, I want you to draft a new set of directions. And it just kept improving there, on the final edit. So
That's the other piece that did you write it down. You can get better, but how can you get better if you don't know where you're coming from?
that's
Right?
right.
Like if you don't have steps along the way and it's like, "Oh, well maybe that step doesn't work. Maybe we should do it this way." And then you can see how that revision plays out throughout the company and how it plays out through training and how people respond to it. You can test and measure
Yes.
your written processes,
Yeah.
right? And so it's so important to have them written down. It's so important to have multiple people. It can't be just this is the way we do it and this is how it is and that's what you're going to do. It's, hey, you know what I noticed? I was going through and I went through the processes and I noticed this branch, this thing.
Mhm.
I think something needs to be in there about
Yeah.
that. And then that can again refine and create the process better.
Oh, it's
You
an
know,
ongoing process for sure. I mean, the last document that we began to add, and it's always changing, is a FA. I knew you were going to put that up there. Was a frequently
I do
asked.
it.
I know. Well, I knew you were going to put that up there. You could see your eyes spinning. FAQs, frequently asked questions. So a
Mhm.
customer calls into a CSR and says, "Hey, I've changed my mind. I want to cancel the repair." If you don't have that process written down, then they have to say, "Well, let me get you to a manager." And now we have a bottleneck of
Mhm.
waiting to get things done. And so FAQ and just hyperlinks.
Yep.
So, customer does not want to wait for scheduled date. So here are 3 things that the CSR can offer
Mhm.
before the manager. So we love the hyperlinks, not parchment, but hyperlinks that we can click to. And the thing that I was thinking of a couple weekends ago, and I forgot, and you reminded me, was thanks to Chat GPT, I think I'm going to upload all of our documents and that, it's at one section at a time, and then potentially ask Chat to create a small quiz based on it. And then maybe a new employee coming on could be tested on, the section that we're discussing
I
of
love that.
process and procedure, right? And it's not, to freak him out, but I think it might send the message that it's really important that you know this and that you follow this. And, and then as well as we will know where they're weak at or where they don't quite understand.
I
So
was gonna say
that's on my to-do list now. Yeah.
it's a great feedback for you. Am I training well? Am I helping them understand? Am
Yeah.
I teaching the way that they learn?
Yep.
Because how many of us don't pay attention to there's multiple learning styles, right? There's
That's right.
multiple ways that people's brains work. And so are we teaching to the way that they learn? Are we paying attention to that? And a quiz
Right.
can really help you. Okay, so you bomb that, right? Let's talk through that. Let's
Yeah.
you know, how can we get better at this part, right? And it becomes a two-way street. Am I teaching effectively? Is my process clear to someone who's never been in
Mhm.
this before, right? And so that's that accountability. Having it written down provides accountability in both directions.
Yeah.
It's so important.
It's mind blowing thinking of these corporate worlds with departments of hundreds of people in there. I mean, we're just a little under 30, and it's a lot. It's a lot to
Mhm.
take. And the reality is as you were just saying, we hire different types of people. So when
Mhm.
they bomb or not get it's because there's different approaches. We have
Mhm.
some really great new employees that, like, man, they're asking a question for clarification, wanting to know the why behind it so that they don't fail it in the future. And it's like, okay, so if that's the bar you set, you will be hiring and firing a lot of people to find that golden nugget. And then once you find them, you got to keep them here forever. So you have to understand that we're probably going to be in a pipeline. If you're ever planning to scale, you're going to be in a pipeline of people retiring, starting their own business, moving because of family, all kinds of reasons besides not liking the job or us having to fire them. That's a process that you want to have written down so that you can almost be like a machine getting people through the process, and less of you doing the hands-on stuff. I think that's the key thing. Less of you doing the individual training as you're trying to hire 3 techs at the same time or something like that.
Right. And it works the same with office. It works the same with sales. It works the same with management. Everyone should have a process in place for what their job is, right? And how can you do raises or bonuses or any other type of compensation, right? Because one of the biggest complaints out there is that people feel like they're doing more work than they're being paid for or compensated for through bonus structure or whatever. And is there a way to judge that? Well, if you don't have a written process and procedure in place, there's nothing to balance that off of. There's no way to go, you know what, you did really great on this, or you could use some improvement here. Here's let's do some extra training, or let's go through this schooling or whatever, right? If you don't have that, you have no way to accurately move people through it. If you want to retain people, you're going to pay them better than anyone else. You're going to make it a place that they want to be. You're going to make it a place where everyone fits and understands their role. I love that your new employees are coming on and wanting to know the why. I'm a why guy. I can understand the process, but if I don't understand why I'm doing it, I'm not going to buy into it. I'm not going to do it. And sometimes your written procedure will help to understand the why. It helps them get the whole picture.
It certainly explained why somebody who's very obedient and would follow the rules, after a period of time, the grace period, the probationary period, they get comfortable. Things started to lax. And it's like, what happened? They're fakers. They come on, they pretend to be efficient and follow the rules. But I've come to realize, the last couple of years, those that are coming to me asking why, they really want to know, and they buy into those little tiny steps, like a leave behind, or something like that. The importance of doing that. If they don't understand that it's $30 to $45 every time the phone rings to call for service. That's what it takes to get a new customer through Google and other ridiculous lead services. If our technicians knew that, and knew that the leave behind gets them to call us in essence for free or for a couple cents, and that's your future leadership if they care about stuff like that.
Yeah, and I mean, for people like me, like that, why that helps us go through that process and tie into it. The leave behind is a perfect thing. So if you have it in your process, hey, we leave behind. Okay, cool. Why?
Right.
Why do we do that? Right. Like I love that. I love that. Okay. It costs $40 to get this phone to ring, and our service call is only $100. Right. So like, it's so important to leave that so that we get the referrals. Great. I'm going to leave that leave behind every time. I'm going to work on being a relational person with that customer, not a transactional. And they can really buy into that process and that sales structure. And drive some more referrals and business and reviews. How about reviews? People are like, I can't get reviews. I can't get people to leave it. Are you asking? No, I don't feel comfortable. Here's why it's important to ask. And it's a part of the process that you write out, and you can then hold them accountable. Hey, so, Joe got 18 5-star reviews and you got 1. Right. Why did that happen? Right. And how do we improve that? And you can hold them accountable as well as yourself.
This year I've stepped back into a role of sort of like a service manager coach, KPI coach. and meeting now with guys on a regular basis, at least once a month, talking about what's working, talking about what's not working. But before that meeting ends, something is going to be written down. You know, looking through their numbers, looking through incidences that were great and not so great, and then looking at the whole picture and saying, so what do you think is something that you should work on this month? You know, and some of them can zone right in on what they see, and others need some coaching. And then when we're done, we write it down. And then when we meet up next time, the plan is, and I've already done it at least once. So how has that right there been going for you? And I've done that twice, and one forgot all about it, and one was like, here's a couple hurdles that I had. So that's an example of, you know, progress, and someone who's either saying, whatever, I don't really care about what you're talking about, or they truly forgot. And what I'm going to do is remind them, because we wrote it down, that it's important to me, and that we've already discussed why we think it's important to you to work on that. So stay tuned as I figure out the different types of personalities. And that's the reality. As your team grows, you're going to have all different types. And if you think you're looking for just one, good luck. Good luck on finding 8 little clones of you. You're just not going to find it, you know? And then what's funny is whatever your best clone is probably something, or maybe something I wouldn't want at Action Appliance. That's another cool thing, that your culture, your purpose, what's important to you might be a little different than what's important to me. And so we do kind of want clones, or maybe even better than that, people buying and drinking the Kool-Aid of your vision and mission, which is another thing that needs to be written down, right?
And you can get so much better when you have all this stuff written down. You can, because you can, maybe someone has a better way to do it. So I work with our ops manager. We probably talk at least an hour every single day, just going through things. And it's Friday, we're talking as I'm driving back from a job, and we're talking about the tracking. The owner's like, oh, we're going to put everything in Google, and that's how I'm going to track everything. And I'm like, dude, that's like just extra busy work as a salesperson. And I understand why he wants to do it, and I understand how it helps. Help me get to that process faster. Here's what I think. And he's like, dude, I can put that in the CRM. He goes, I can literally, I can add these little sub parts of that, and I can put a rule in it. If it's retail, it will only pop up this little pop-up. If it's insurance, it'll pop this little pop-up. And so having those conversations, having stuff written down on a week-to-week basis, you can get better. I don't think the same way that our ops manager does. He's very high level. He's very process oriented. I'm very abstract and you know, understand the why, touch, feel, like really get in and dig in and do it. And so between the two of us, we're able to begin to create these processes that just help everyone else. I know the rest of the guys are struggling with the same thing I am. I know they are, because they're not tracking it. And so if I'm having trouble,
if you give them 3 to 5 years, they'll finally sink it in and become routine. So that's what I love about your operations owner, or the owner, adding that in and removing the bottleneck as a pop-up, just as a step. Answer the question.
Right.
And you're done. And now you don't have to remember. And guess what? Eventually you'll pick it up faster. But a joke that I always make, or a reference that I always make to all new hirees is, you know, besides repairing appliances and learning how to communicate with customers and make their day better, is the 2,134 little things that you need to know about procedures, landlords, software program, you know, asking for a day off, you know, benefits. You got to learn all that stuff. And so as much of that as we can, take it off their plate, and that they can just kind of flow chart it, deal through it, because it's written down. It's way better that way.
Yeah. Again, from my own personal experience, I came in and I said, well, we don't have any of this written down. We don't have a training manual that has like the steps. They're like, well, why didn't you cap the job this way? Because I didn't know.
Sure.
Like, you guys know how to cap a job. I don't know how to cap a job. No one's walked me through the steps from start to finish on how to cap a job. And here's the pieces that we're missing along the way that weren't trained on, right?
Yeah.
So, and I brought that in humbly as someone who had done that with my own employees, right? Like, oh boy, was I bad at like walking them through the whole
Mhm.
process. And
Yeah.
it really, it comes down to writing it down. Write the process down. Put it
Yeah.
on paper. Put it in the cloud. I, send up smoke signals. I don't care. Like, it has to be somewhere where it can be accessed on a regular basis, so everyone can always follow it. And
You know what? It hit me this morning. One of my techs who I just had a meeting with on Friday, we talked about him having to take a day off. So he texted me this morning a picture of an appointment that he's got to make. And he goes, "Oh, this is the date." I just instantly said, look up how to request time off and
mm-hmm,
follow that process. I was not going to say, "Oh, thanks," because now I'm the last
right,
one to touch it and it's
right.
on me. And then that day rolls up and he's got 8 calls and damn it, so and I let them know later. I'll talk to him later and go, "I wasn't trying to deflect you, but you need to follow the process."
Well, and it helps them get better because then the next time
Absolutely.
they know how to do it, and it communicates to the office
Yeah.
manager, it communicates to CSRs, it communicates to the service
Yeah.
manager. It helps everyone be better at what they are doing if it's documented, if it's put
Yeah.
somewhere, and if it's
Now,
followed. And you
now
may not
granted,
want clones, right? Like you
no.
were talking about not wanting clones, but that's the closest you're going to get to clones. That's the closest you're going to get to people
Mhm.
doing a repeatable process all the time is if
Right.
it's written down. They'll
Yeah.
have their own flair to it, which is great
Oh,
because
absolutely.
that's what people identify. They
That's right.
identify with the individual,
Yeah.
but they're uniformly doing the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not Joe going out and doing the service call one way and then Bob comes back and the customer's like, "Well, but he did
That's
it
right.
this way." It keeps it pretty consistent.
Yeah, I've seen that, right? For sure. Healthy boundaries gives you opportunity to be unique and customize a situation as long as you're within the confines of those boundaries. It's a beautiful thing. And the great part is when it's written down. So as a leadership team, from the owner to all our managers, our goals for the year, our company KPIs, everything is written down. And we meet
Mm.
once a week for about an hour and a half. And the start of every meeting after reading our code of values is just quickly going through the scorecard for the week.
Right.
And you see those things, they're written down. And what's kind of neat is when somebody isn't lining up, someone's not doing what they're supposed to do. When you look at those numbers on a regular basis, there creates a boldness and a confidence in us to be able to have scary conversations like maybe we should think about letting that technician go who brings in $300,000 a year in revenue but is a huge machine of chaos to our customers, to our employees. Like it would be better. The amount of work that this person creates with them not following our rules, is it really worth the 300,000? And when you have the big picture written down, all those numbers and your purpose, when your vision and your mission statement and your numbers are next to each other in a meeting written down, you can't say it doesn't matter how sucky he is. We need his $300,000. You just said what's your purpose and what's your why, and then so it gives you a big picture confidence to step into the raging waters and say, you know what, he's missing or she's missing in these 4 areas. Sadly, we've tried. It's written down. We've asked that person to follow the rules. They're not. It's time to part ways.
And
And
the great part about that is that these underperformers or people that aren't performing to that level all of a sudden are going to fill in that gap and they're going to blow past that 300,000 that that guy
oh
created
yeah, yeah,
because
that's
they're
right.
going to be following the process. They're going to be doing the things. They're drinking the Kool-Aid. They're doing
Yep,
what they should be doing
yep.
repeatably every single time.
Mhm.
And that bar gets raised because this person is lowering the standard, even though they're driving finances, right?
Mhm.
Everyone else is lower because they're like, well, if this guy is doing that, then, like
Yeah,
maybe that's what I should be doing. and it lowers that bar when the bar is really way up here.
Sure.
Get rid of that person, and then all of a sudden the bar raises for everyone else, and they're hitting or exceeding that bar that you've created. Right.
We've recently have a personal testimony to that it really is true, as we've lost people who just didn't buy in and did their own thing, and they brought in decent money within a year. That year that we brought new people in, it's amazing how. And David Oliva wrote an article on that.
Mm-hmm.
He got rid of his people that just were not right for the team, and he found a more profitable and profit year when he unloaded the expenses of people that weren't doing the right thing. And that's what encouraged and inspired me to kind of take some smaller steps, because our expenses are way higher than his. But we're in that direction. It's a beautiful place to be. It really is.
And for a 1 and 2 man show, you have no idea how expensive that is. I mean, it's just like, it's mind blowing how expensive it is to have the wrong person on the bus with you. You know what I mean? And so if you're able to hold them accountable, if you're able to properly train, fire, whatever, it's a great thing. You can grow so much more than you think is even possible just by writing it down and following it all the time. So
agreed.
I hope we have inspired some of you guys out there to start writing it down. It's really not scary. Start with, if you're like me and you're not all about the spreadsheets and typing up, 50-page handbooks, how to do things, find someone who is gifted in that. But start by writing down. Keep a little paper notebook, field notes. I have little ones, I have big ones. I keep them with me at all times. That way I can go, oh, you know what? That was good. Or, oh man, here's how I can improve that the next time. And then you can transition that into something that everyone can follow down the road. So just start with writing it down and then turn it into something that everyone can access. Baby steps.
Imagine grabbing one of your texts. If you're an owner and you're on the road and you take a morning breakfast and you just say to the guy across the way, so what do you do? Tell me what your steps are, beginning of the day, and what you do on every call, and you just write it down. Now you know what he does or she does, and now you've got something to build off of as well. But it just collect the data from around you. I mean, to get your headspace into mode of like, this particular part of the business or this, it can sometimes be daunting. But just grab one of your employees or if you're about to pay your bills, just sit down and just have your notebook right there, and just step one, collect bills. Just as you're doing something, just write it down, and give it to someone else. Give it to Zach. Zach likes to create. Oh, never mind. It could be a good side gig for you, Zach.
I can talk you through it. I don't like to write it down. I need a PA pretty soon.
You need an integrator. Yeah.
I need a PA. I need someone who can just like take it from my word vomit and turn it into something intelligible for everyone else to follow. Because
Saul might be looking for a new job. So
there you go. There you go.
All right. Have a great
All right,
week.
guys. Have a great week. We will see you next time on the grind.